We're in Cockerham this morning, or passing through rather quickly at any rate. There's a long-winded folk poem about the village about how the schoolmaster outwitted Lucifer. Well, he would, wouldn't he? I'm not going to repeat it, it's rather boring. Suffice it to say that after a series of convoluted trials, the schoolmaster got the better of the horned one, and the devil,
with one horrid frig, his mind very unwilling, strolled to the brig over Broad Street at Billing.
We weren't sure what one horrid frig meant either, so we looked it up in the dictionary and then decided it might be best to leave the explanation alone altogether. However, the imprint of the devil's hoof can still be seen on the wall of Broadfleet Bridge to this day, if you use your imagination. Which is all very fascinating, but it's not proper history. For that, we need to take a gander at St. Michael's and All Angels. It's been here since 1153, and the tower dates to the 15th century. The parish registers begin in 1595, the list of vicars in 1207. The first vicar, apparently, was known as Reginald. Obviously, church records back in the 13th century were a bit more informal. In 1275, the equally enigmatic Mr. Hugh replaced Reg. Whether Hugh was his Christian name, his surname, or his only name, he might have been a celebrity like Kylie or Lulu. We can only speculate. In 1324, Mr. Hugh was usurped by the singularly named Adam, who in 1350 was supplanted by plain old John. We could keep this up all day, but it's best if we don't. There are a number of gravestones in this burial ground amongst the fields that bear testimony to St. Michael's longevity. Some inscriptions date back to 1570, others are now so ancient they're illegible. One, sacred to the memory of Henry Smith of LL, resembles a fireplace, complete with mantelpiece. It's built into the church wall as though somebody's living room has been turned inside out. Cockerham is also home to the Black Knights. Every so often the sky above the village explodes with static liners like some giant burst teabag. It's a dangerous pastime, is parachuting. Back in 2012, during the Cockerham Village Fair, with almost the entire village watching, one of the team chutes failed to open. He met a grisly end and left most of the villagers needing therapy, no doubt. We prefer to wander round gravestones ourselves, not be buried beneath them. More history, and outside the village hall stands what, according to the plaque attached to it, is a medieval cross. It's not medieval, it's a keel cross dating from around the 5th century. It originally stood alongside the Roman road into Lancaster. Further up at Stony Lane stands another keel cross base, this time accompanied by a Roman milestone. Let's head back through Cockerham to the stately pile that is Thurnham Hall on the other side. The current building is mostly Tudor, although there's been a manor house of some description or other on the site since the 12th century. In the 1900s it was derelict, and remained that way until it was restored by the Crabtrees in the 1970s, along with its resident ghosts. It's got lots of ghosts. Well, alright, 3 of them, but that's 3 more than most places have. The first is the extremely late Colonel Thomas Dalton, who was mortally wounded at the Battle of Naseby, often seen hurrying across the landing. Exactly why, nobody knows. Perhaps he got caught short. The second is a boggart, which throws sticks from the fireplace, drags covers from the beds, and removes all the crockery from fully laid tables, then piles it up in heaps on the floor. Obviously there's nothing on the telly. Finally, there's Elizabeth Dalton, otherwise known as the Lady in Green. She's been spotted wandering around her old bedroom and gliding across the lawn. According to witnesses, she sometimes dresses up as a nun. each to their own, which brings us to the priest hole. Thurnham Hall, in its current incarnation, was constructed at the height of the Catholic persecution. Similar to most Tudor buildings around these parts, it's full of secret crannies in which priests took refuge. According to Paul Sanderson, whose parents were friends with the Crabtrees, there is a priest hole behind one of the fireplaces in an upstairs bedroom. I can remember going in it. Around the corner from Thurnham Hall, buried deep in the Bluebell Woods, stands SS Thomas and Elizabeth. We're not sure if you pronounce that as saints or just hiss between your teeth. It's one of the cosiest churches you're ever likely to stumble across, which is surprising because, as a rule, Catholics don't do cosy. The parish was founded in 1785 when Father James Foster was elected, or however such people are chosen, to be in charge. Before then, the village had been served by travelling priests for hire, wandering from village to village, like Clint Eastwood. The most famous of these was Reverend James Swarbrick, who was arrested and sentenced to death at Lancaster Castle. Before the authorities could execute him, however, he inconveniently died. Rumours persist to this day that he was tortured to death. That's what happens when you go around threatening people with hymn books. Thurnham Church is idyllic, but as with all such places of architectural merit, you always expect to find at least one monument to ugliness hanging around somewhere. In Thurnham's case, it's the mausoleum for the Gillows family relations, or so we've been told, of the famous Lancastrian furniture makers. In front of the church stands a cross believed to have originated in Cockerham Abbey. One other curio worth a mention before we leave is a gravestone, the inscription of which begins, "Jesus mercy Mary help." You can't help thinking that William Brown, the grave's occupant, didn't really want to be in there. Images of the priest putting his foot on Brown's head as the coffin was lowered spring to mind. Finally, just outside the church, now obscured by a tangle of leaves, is the sign for Cockerham Farm. We didn't visit. We figured there wouldn't be much there. Enough. We've run out of time. Subscribe, click like, comment, do whatever you want. Just make sure that you're back here in time for next week's episode of Lancashire Footnotes.